Hey guys, Chad here from Take It or Leave It Reviews, here to talk to you today about a little movie called The Menu. This movie follows a young couple that travels to a remote island to eat at an exclusive restaurant where the chef has prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises. But let's get down to brass tacks. I loved most of this movie. So let's get into the pros and cons. First off, this ensemble cast was excellent. I can honestly say that the entire cast I thought was really phenomenal. Obviously, Ralph Fiennes just led the whole pack. I mean, he's Ralph Fiennes. He's incredible and he's great in this. But also, I gotta point out that Nicholas Hoult, that guy is becoming one of the better actors working today and one of the most well-rounded actors working. He can do drama, he can do thriller, he can do action and insanity, you know, whether it's like Fury Road. And then he's also hysterical. I mean, he is incredible in that show, The Great. He's absolutely hilarious, and he's hilarious in this movie as well. Anya Taylor-Joy is, again, another person who is just rising in the ranks of incredible actors working today. She really nailed her role, and I really believe that she was a non-F-around person. Just don't mess with her, don't tell her what to do, like, she's her own person, and I believed her. And I also gotta say that it's really nice to see John Leguizamo again. He also really held his own. Every time he popped up in this movie, I was really happy to see him. But I don't want to take away from how great the rest of the cast is, because everyone is really phenomenal in this. And I know this because the film early on really takes its time and giving you some time with each table. So we've got a lot of time to get to know these characters and have them really give out a great performance. But it also gave me time to kind of start understanding who these characters were at each table and who they were, what their deal was, maybe why I shouldn't care about them. You know, it was just really nice to get that time with them. I also thought that it was cool that each table kind of had its own respective theme that is touched on throughout the film. It didn't feel too overly crowded. I thought it did a fairly good job of touching on one theme and then going into the next theme and going to the next one. I thought it did a pretty good job. I also thought that this film had really incredibly well done cinematography. The film kind of feels like a play. And one thing I really loved about the cinematography is that it's very layered. And by that, I mean that we have our primary focus right at the forefront of the camera, and then we have like the kind of middle ground and then the background. And in the middle ground, you have like another table that might be kind of listening in, and you kind of see their reaction to the conversation. And then in the very background, you see Ralph Fiennes, and he's paying attention to the conversation. You're seeing kind of his response, but it's all in this one shot. So you're getting a ton of information in this very layered cinematography that I just thought was extremely well executed. It just communicated so much in a very short amount of time. I also appreciated how the writers really buttoned up on the details of the film. There's a point where there's like an unlit candle, and then at some point that candle gets lit again. You know, it's almost like we could have just forgotten about it, but the writers didn't. And it's just those little details that I really appreciated that just felt real buttoned up by the writers. And lastly, I liked how the film just took a sidebar and actually presented the courses and gave a detailed kind of description of what the courses were and what they meant. And I just thought that was really nice because they actually get funnier and funnier, and some of my biggest laughs were in the presentation of the actual courses. That being said, most of the positives that I just mentioned I found to be in the first 2/3 of the film, and in the last third of the film is where some of the negatives start to creep in a little bit. I'll touch on it in a little more detail, but all in all, I just felt that the third act kind of fizzled out a little bit and just wasn't nearly as exciting and enthralling as the first two acts of the film. I think one of the big reasons for that is that I didn't feel like the arcs of the characters were really tied up very well. They do try to touch on that some, but for the vast majority of the customers that are there, I just didn't feel like a ton of remorse or a lot of closure or, you know, whatever you want to call it. I just kind of felt like, why do they feel the way that they do? John Leguizamo and the person sitting at his table with him, they do touch on that a little bit, and so I appreciated that, but kind of everybody else, I just didn't quite believe it. So it didn't really feel like it came together quite that well at the end in terms of the character arcs. That also goes for Anya Taylor-Joy's character, who's kind of our main character in this film. I really was confused by her arc. Maybe I missed something. It's entirely possible. I have done that before, and I'm probably going to do it again. But it might have just missed something, and like, what was her arc? It was just confusing for me. There were also a couple scenes in the third act that I just found a bit silly and kind of took me out of the movie a little bit. Like, they just didn't seem like they fit this movie very well. In particular, there's a scene involving two characters that are in a knife fight that just kind of felt out of nowhere, as well as a scene with with a Coast Guard person that just, again, felt kind of odd and just out of nowhere. And I don't know, it just took me out of the movie a little bit. And lastly, the ending of the film had kind of a Midsummer, the Ari Aster film that he directed after Hereditary. It had that kind of an ending, at least it kind of felt like that. But what I liked about the Midsummer ending more than this one was just that it was really weird and made me feel really uncomfortable, and it was very bizarre. This one didn't really feel that way. I felt kind of like, oh man, so we're gonna go the safe route, I guess. And maybe that's an overarching criticism, I guess, is that this movie just didn't get quite as crazy as I was hoping it might. But, you know, what are you gonna do? And with all that being said though, guys, I do think that this is a very good film. In fact, I think that 2/3 of the film is great. And I think that some movies that have elements of them in this film include High Rise, Tar, Velvet Buzzsaw, and 2021's Candyman. And if all that sounds good to you, then I definitely recommend that you check out The Menu. And I'm going to give The Menu a 7.4 out of 10. But that's just what I think. Take it or leave it. What do you guys think? Have you seen The Menu yet? Are you excited about it? Let me know down in the comment section. Let's talk about it. And as always, guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really, really appreciate it. Don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Chad from Take It or Leave It, and I'll check you later.
Check you later. Check you later.
Hey, man, get off my case.
Man, chicks don't want to hear that shit.